got another episode today with my friend Nino. Thanks for being here, Nino. I'm excited to have this conversation today with you and just talk a little bit about your role within Casa Lumbre and kind of where you started as a bartender, and then we'll talk a little bit about your brand book.
Sure.
Go from there. So for those listening and watching who don't know Nino, can you introduce yourself to us?
Yes, well, my full name is Nino Gandulla, but yeah, everybody knows me as Nino. I am currently a national ambassador for Casa Lumbre Spirits and Ojo de Tigre with Pernod Ricard.
And how long have you been in this ambassador role?
Funny, I just heard yesterday the exact amount, 34 months. So I'm about to go on like my fourth year, I guess, of being a brand ambassador. But yeah, enjoying the journey.
And you were a bartender first, right? Before this?
Yes, I will be now 17 years in this industry. But yeah, I started actually as a server, then turned bartender and so many other roles within liquids.
What were you a bartender for?
Ooh, I never have done the math, but I would say for at least 12 years. I mean, yeah, I started in Puerto Rico and then did a little bartending also in Chicago before the pandemic. And yeah, now behind the brand side. So yeah, roughly I would say about 12 years.
Okay, that's awesome. And you started in Puerto Rico, so you started in restaurants and then you transitioned to being behind a bar.
Yeah, so I started behind actually a teppanyaki restaurant. I started actually like serving sushi, moved on to a couple of other restaurants. And the one that I actually started bartending at was called Dragonfly. Kind of this tale of the bartender didn't show up that day. I was that server that always knew the ingredients and kind of how things should taste and look. So they just kind of threw me behind the bar. I guess I grew up also with a philosophy of like, whatever you do, it doesn't matter as long as like you're the best. So I started just looking for recipes in books, and because they later on, like they didn't keep me as a server. They were like, now you got 2 shifts behind the bar. And then they kept giving me shifts. To be honest, I did enjoy it. It was very different from just serving a plate that somebody else made versus giving somebody and seeing the reaction straight from your hands. Later on, I started hearing, the liquor people that would come, the reps, and tell you about there's these seminars and all these things. And this is around, I would say 2013, 2014. And this is kind of like when the cocktail renaissance kind of started in Puerto Rico. World Class was involved in all of these things. And I actually went to a World Class seminar hosted by Roberto Verdecilla and Leslie Cofresi that were at the moment like past champions of that platform. And I went to like a couple of those seminars, and they approached me and they were like, hey, we're starting this bar. If you ever want to come for just to have a cocktail or stage. And I did go for a cocktail. And then I was like, hey, can I come just learn in between shifts? You don't have to. I think that first shift, I didn't even want to get paid. I just wanted to learn. And then I started coming more and more to the bar. And I remember Leslie being like, do not quit your job. Like, I don't have, how to really have you on payroll at this moment. Back then it was I think Natasha, Sofia, it was Roberto, it was Leslie and Otto and I think 1 or 2 more people. And then they were gonna open this wine bar, and he said that he would have space there, but then I quit my job and I was like, surprise, I'm here to stay.
Yeah.
So they just hired me, and I started doing syrups, so I became a bartender. Yeah, I was make cocktails, but everything from a wine philosophy kind of standpoint, which was really cool because back then spritzes weren't a thing yet, and taking the wine that was going bad and creating syrups to become New York sour variations and all of these cocktails that do have wine aspects, like an old Cuban, a French 75, that wasn't quite trendy actually back then, but the people that drank wine, that was our way of getting them into drinking cocktails.
And then after that wine bar, did you work anywhere else?
So, I mean, I was at La Factoria for about 5 years. Each bar had a different concept. So I did learn a lot more than just wine. I learned a lot about classics. I always say that Leslie's my bar dad because he taught me how to make a mojito, an old fashioned. And then through the bar also, and us kind of trying to make Puerto Rico a cocktail destination, we got to go do a lot of guest ships around the world. So we did Panama. I believe we did Mexico. We got to go overseas doing competitions and different other things through La Facto. But then I think I got to a point where I was reaching my I was like, I can't do really 5 or 6 a.m. I would start getting like a little cranky around 2 or 3 a.m. And that's when I actually got my first brand job, which was with Don Q.
Okay.
And that's when I came to Houston and actually met
Yes,
a lot of you
yeah,
guys.
that's when I met.
Yeah. So I started working for Don Q for about a year and a half. And then I had a personal family matter that I went to tend to. And then really the Don Q opportunity kind of wasn't, I think what nobody even in the company wanted. That position got eliminated and got changed to a different territory. And I actually moved out to Chicago. And in Chicago, I did work for a little bit at RPM Steak. It's part of the Lettuce Group, which is one of the biggest groups out of Illinois, out of Chicago. Worked there as a bartender for a little bit, and then the pandemic came, and I think everybody was at standstill for at least that year. I was about to move back to Puerto Rico, and then Camille Austin La Loba sends me this like message about, hey, do you know anybody in Houston that would want to do this job? And I'm like, send me a job description. I read it and I'm like, why am I gonna? I literally tell her like, why would I offer like or suggest somebody for like the job that I want? And she was like, I kind of was wanting to hear this, and she was like, would you be willing to move back to Houston? There's nothing happening in Chicago during the pandemic, so that's how I ended up moving back to Houston about like shy of her like 3 years ago, and I've been in this role, but. The 2 bars that I actually have worked at, was at Facto and at RPM. But within being with those bars, I did get to do little guest shifts here.
Yeah, and you were always a bartender. Where did you go into like a lead position within the bars?
Yes, I started at Facto making syrups and like being a bar back. Then I became a bartender. Then I became a head bartender that also helped like train. And then I was a manager. I managed one of the bars, which was the wine bar. And was kind of like that part of the team along with Carlos and some of the other kind of head bartenders that also got to go represent the bar at other places, including like Tails and being able to be part of platforms for Lush Life and for so many other different competitions that we did.
It's awesome. So kind of in your role as an ambassador for the brand, what have some of the challenges been that you've had to navigate coming from being a bartender to making the jump into that side of the world?
Many challenges. I mean, first of all, it's kind of like it takes a long time to completely switch off that bartender mind frame from in all aspects, kind of like feeling that whenever you walk out of your door, you're kind of on, because at least if you work in a bar that's kind of community based, everybody will always see you as, the person that is behind the bar. Learning the whole business aspect, even if you're a bar manager and you know how to fill an Excel spreadsheet and all that, there's way more that comes with learning the brand business, everything from, learning all of these acronyms that come from the distributors as a supplier side, learning what numbers really mean. I'm learning a lot of the numbers aspect, learning how to speak to marketing and how to speak to all these more pretty much corporate people. Even if you're in a small company, like the language is going to be a little different depending on who you're speaking with. And also learning how to plan out your hours. I think we become these night creatures, and then learning what to do with your day, how to get appointments, how to be, just shifting that mentality from night to like being in a business during the day and being kind of like an entrepreneur in a way, because nobody's going to plan it out for you. Nobody's going to hold your hand. You have to kind of be hungry and take initiative, I would say. So there's a lot of challenges throughout all of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like running your own business, but you're not really a business owner per se.
And also learning when we're bartenders, yes, when we're behind the bar, we're on. But then as soon as we clock out, we just, kind of like let the air out and have a beer. Like this is at all moments, you're kind of like a role model for a lot of people. And you are allowed to make mistakes, but it's a type of mistakes that you're making and how people will perceive you after you get up from that mistake. Also, I think you have to think twice about a lot of the things you do in public spaces.
It's definitely about maintaining an image.
Yeah. It's kind of being like, I know it sounds really tacky, but it's kind of like artists. Like then you understand like why do they act a particular way and they don't react to things sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a lot of When I started coming into bartending, a lot of the ambassadors are kind of like the rock stars. And we would look up to y'all and like, oh yeah, these guys have made a career for themselves. They started bartending and now they're in this ambassador role representing the brand that they really wanted to represent. Definitely for sure.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. And again, I mean, there's many responsibilities that kind of come with it that you don't realize. Because again, like you say, you just look at them as rock stars, but there's a lot of maintaining, the education. You can't be like a sloppy drunk. Like you have to be you're promoting alcohol. You have to be responsible with your relationship with it. And also how to manage people, because people are drinking and they might be having fun or too much fun or going through their emotions, and it's how you react sometimes to that. Yeah, it's kind of complex and it could be overwhelming, but you just got to take it one day at a time. Nobody's perfect and you'll grow into it. And again, it's also finding a brand or a platform that kind of matches your personality and the type of person you are.
And then the role you're in, it sounds like specifically there's a lot of numbers versus education, where some brand ambassadorships are just education focused. Is that correct?
Well, not really. I just like understanding like the business aspect, because then you become a kind of more well-rounded ambassador. I love the education. That's actually why I'm in this role. That's what I am passionate about. I like learning and sharing what I learn and trying to find the history and the traditions and finding how I also, as a Latina, click with whatever the ethos and the things that are behind, whether it's the flavor or the history or something of a brand. I just mentioned that aspect because sometimes that's why we can become very dispensable in the business, because at the end of the day, we are the ones, the bartenders, that care about all this history and all this science and all of these things. But the people, not everybody, not every company, but a lot of the people that normally are in marketing and sales are in the business aspect of this business. We are more in the emotional history, falling in love, storytelling aspect of this executiveness part of the industry. That's the part that I love. So I need to learn a little bit of that so that they also see you more as an asset than just as an accessory.
So your job deals a lot with the marketing teams. So
Yes.
Is that kind of one of the things that you have to bridge that gap, is basically what you're saying, with what you do and trying to get them to understand who might not necessarily know the industry well?
I don't think they're people that are behind a computer, and not a lot of them have the access to the things that we have. First, because we come from being behind the bar. So the knowledge of cocktails, of taste, of flavor, and then how that experience of serving somebody also, and the complexity of making a cocktail. So we don't, they're not buddy-buddy with the bartender. Like when we walk into a bar, they have no clue who that person is. They don't know if they're important or not. So for me, it's using my creativity and trying to bridge it with their messaging or whatever their intention is. But I try to look at it as, how can I take their goal and make it an experience and a memory for the trade, but also for the consumer. That's my role. My role is to be that in between. Yes, we can get the sales because they're going to get an Instagrammable moment, but the bartender loves it because X, Y, and Z. He loves the flavor. He loves the reaction. He's selling a bunch of them. I don't know. It's a bridge between like all those three things.
What advice would you give someone who's looking to get into a role like you, making that jump?
I mean, first, try to master whatever your craft is and really find what you love about bartending. Like for me, it was always about the customer service, the reaction. I could be making vodka sodas for all I care, but it's all about that reaction, how they feel, how I made that moment memorable for them. If you love whatever category, make sure that you really learn and like not just everything about a book, but try to visit these places, really find, that passion for the category that you love. Even if you love all categories, fine. Just, there's a lot of certifications out there. Try to, do your due diligence and educate yourself as much as you can. Always, like whenever you're in a bar, whenever you're presenting to everybody, don't treat everybody the same. In my opinion, you never know who's watching. Don't ever talk bad about any brands. Even if you don't like it, just be honest. Hey, that's not my palate. That's not my style, or that I'm not the consumer for that brand. And expose yourself in the sense of, try to go to a lot of, brand events. If you really want to work for a brand, go support the things that brand is doing. Yep. That's the only way that they will know that you are interested in doing things with them. And kind of find an in-between between your passion, what you love. Maybe you love cocktails on fire. Then find how you own that so that you add that into that brand, and then you have your own style. You're not just copy pasting, because your personality needs to shine to be memorable. You are your own brand. You don't want to change because you now work for somebody. You're going to change your wardrobe, your personality. You have to find something that you really feel you can make your own, and that'll take time. And it also depends again on the company and a lot of things. But I feel like you should be aligned to work with brands that you feel in a way that you're represented.
Definitely finding that conceptual, like corporate word, conceptual fit is probably the best.
Yeah, I've seen many people do it. Like, I think a great example of that is like Erlisha Richel. Like, she used to work for Saint Germain. She's now got her own thing going, but she didn't try to become this French girl. Like, she brought her style. She brought a lot of her vision and just paired it with ethos that the brand had. There are great many examples, I think, of that throughout different brands of people that really have made a happy medium between who they are as a person, as a brand, and then what the brand stands for.
Well, segueing into our next topic here is going to be talking a little bit about the bar scenes. So I know you're pretty traveled. You've traveled across the U.S., Puerto Rico. What do you think of the Houston bar scene overall right now? Let's talk about Houston, then we'll get into the US.
I mean, I've now collectively been in Houston for about 7 years. So I've seen a little bit of waves, I would say. I would say that the community's small, like the actual people that participate, that care about making cocktails and hospitality overall is a small group. And it doesn't change very much. I think at the same time, people don't sleep on Houston. There's a lot of cool things, I think, happening. But I feel also there's a little bit of frustration because a lot of people don't look at Houston other than maybe 1 or 2 bars. But I do think there's a lot of talent. I think there's a lot of hunger. I think there's a lot of diversity. It's just finding the right spaces where these people can actually manifest that and do this. They're limited, I would say. They're either part of restaurants, and the cocktail programs that are dedicated to cocktails are limited, and they're kind of just ran by 2 or 3 people that have very particular standards, and they're not very malleable, that is okay too. But you do need spaces where people can show or be given, I don't know, freedom to also show a little bit of what they do. But I feel like, again, there are a lot of new bars that are now opening to that. I think there are now bars that are also at the high level. I mean, the Four Seasons has bandistas that's doing a program that can be up to par to any other Four Seasons. Yeah. I look at the new Reserve that is bringing all of this talent and bringing a new perspective to what whiskey is. I mean, there are your classics also, like Lalo and Johnny's and, Anvil and all these things. So I feel there's a little bit of everything for everyone. There's a new Nickel City also in town. There's a little bit of everything. So there is the opportunity. I think it's also about the brands, brand ambassadors, people coming to Houston and seeing the potential that there is. Not everything's in Austin. We got good stuff going on here too.
Yeah, Austin's great. We love Austin. It's just Houston, I think, is still kind of
underrated. Yeah,
we're getting there.
We got some nominations. Hopefully, one will come this way. But yeah, just Texas overall, period. I would say people sleep on Texas, but there are things. I think one San Antonio cocktail conference I know now it's rebranded, but I think after the pandemic, kind of people just, after that, kind of Texas died down.
What are some of the trends you're noticing right now outside of Houston, outside of Texas? Because I know you've got Chicago's a big one. We know we just were at San Diego a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
On our weekend.
Well, I just had a whole conversation about everybody's throwing drinks. Everybody's throwing drinks. Great dramatics. Not necessarily great when you have a high volume, in my opinion, but great dramatics. That's a whole conversation about throwing drinks. But yeah, that's one of the trends, definitely. I think people are also now finally using a lot more edible elements as garnishes, like gummies, little breads, little bites. That's always been on, but I feel like I'm seeing it way more now. Yeah, you bite this and it'll change your sip, or this complements this. There's definitely a play on a bite and a drink. Oof, I think those are two of the main ones. But I mean, I think there's always been a culinary aspect to every to cocktails, but people are going, I feel, a little deeper now into flavors like cheeses and salads. And there's a lot of these plant-based ingredients, I would also say. And non-alcoholic is everywhere. And not fancy juices. Like people are, doing verjus and looking for like very particular things that are healthy or an alternative for the ones that are not drinking, doing less. CBD drinks. I'm seeing a lot more CBD drinks at bars too.
Yeah, those are starting to up and come again. I know it was kind of one of those where it would kind of stop and then it stopped and went down and then it's back up again.
Yeah, they're not THC, they're CBD, so maybe that's why they're coming back up again. They probably found some kind of loophole where people are not mixing too many things. But I think also as generations start changing what they imbibe on, that changes, because I feel like a lot more kids are doing mushrooms and weed, so that's probably why they're drinking less. They're just switching it up.
It's definitely the trend on, especially when I watch like Market Watch and all those other articles I read, is we're noticing that the generations that's coming up don't drink as much as, say, our generation and then the generation right after us, which is interesting to see what's going to happen.
And I don't think, and the thing is that they're not really even doing like, sorry, I don't mean to sound this wrong at all, but like they're not really even doing hard drugs. They're just looking for like natural alternatives to kind of like that buzz or the anxiety or whatever it is that every person needs. But yeah, I've been reading about like people in corporate microdosing on mushrooms and like all these other natural alternatives that are popping up. But yeah, there's definitely a big trend on less booze and more, I guess, plant-based or whatever you want to call it.
Healthy options.
Yeah. I love it because as we get older, we realize that, our bodies also can't take on as much and you need to have a break. And it's great to not feel like you're the weirdo with, I don't know, like not drinking, because there's still, even though we say there is a lot of stigma. At least I'm Latina and my friends are like, are you for reals? Why are you drinking a non-alc? Like they immediately think like you're pregnant or something's wrong. And I'm like, dude, I just need a break. I work in alcohol.
Let's see here. So what are some of let's talk cocktails now. So what are some of the notable cocktails you've had recently? Could be a non-alcoholic, since we're talking non-alcoholic, can be something here in Houston.
I mean, I am a person, I love dive bars. I'm also very much right now into non-alcoholic beer. Like I'm trying to find one that to me is like the truest flavors, like similitude. So definitely if you have a non-alcoholic beer, I'm very likely going to want to try it. Not hoppy water, non-alcoholic beer. But noticeable cocktails that I've had lately. I mean, if you haven't had the vodka soda at Super Bueno, those of you heading out to BCB, stop by, have it. It sounds basic, but it's the most not basic vodka soda that you will have. I recently tried a cocktail I had various, but the one that was kind of noticeable to me was at No School Tomorrow. This is Tao's place out in Itasca, Illinois.
Okay.
He has this cloud cocktail, very similar to like the technique that they use at Paradiso. It was a clarified tomato cocktail with a tomato Lego, and then it had a cloud made out of helium and Earl Grey tea. And if you don't kind of pretty much shoot or I don't know, suck the cloud, it starts raining, and that combination kind of makes the tomato water be super exuberant. That was a great cocktail. If you have not been to the Bamboo Room in Three Dots and a Dash, oh my God, not even flavor-wise, just the presentations of these cocktails. Like, you think tiki's crazy? This is like sit-down tiki. You can't really carry this. To me, it's like, it looked like a bridal arrangement, to be honest. I was like, if I get married, can you guys just give everybody one of these? Let me see. I feel like another thing that's trendy and everybody has is a clarified milk punch.
Oh yeah, everybody's saying milk punches now.
But I haven't found one that I can tell you this was. I feel like they're starting to all kind of taste similar to me. I don't know. I guess I'm getting jaded. I mean, yeah, definitely. I would say those two, the vodka soda and that watermelon dip, and Gussel also has a tomato tree cocktail. A Miami Vice. I don't know. It's a Miami Vice Negroni, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Delicious. And the tomato tree. Oh my God. I'm very into clarified tomato. I don't know. I didn't know this except now that in my life that I'm salivating every single time I see anything that says tomato water.
Okay. It's cool. I know I saw something, Roosevelt Room's doing something with tomato too.
I'm going to Austin in a few weeks. I'll go check it out.
Yeah. Cool. Nice segue into our next topic. We'll be talking about Puerto Rico. So talking about where you grew up and where you came from. Can you tell us a little bit about, I've never been to Puerto Rico. I want to go so bad. I've heard about La Factoria, but can you tell us a little bit about the cocktail culture that you've experienced over there and how it's, when you started to where it is now, what changes you've seen happen?
I mean, Puerto Rico is an island that mostly depends a lot on tourism. So even talking about before my time, in this island, like similarly to Cuba in a way, a lot of our hotels had great cocktail scene back in the 50s and the 60s. And I mean, even I believe Trader Vic had something at the Caribe Hilton. At some point, the piña colada was invented in Puerto Rico. So when I started in the hospitality scene, I was 19. At like 19, cocktails were just your standard kind of like these cocktails, Midori sours, whiskey sour. In Puerto Rico, there's always been like scotch and coconut, medallas, shots, chichaito, which is anise and rum. Like those were like kind of like the things that I grew up with. Vodka sodas or vodka and fresh grapefruit juice or fresh juices were very common. So just kind of like your standard 2-mix cocktails. At the restaurants that I worked at, it was like rum punches with maybe a little ginger, like a little twist, but nothing too crazy. I think Dragonfly, I started seeing more complex cocktails in the sense that they incorporated sake and a bunch of other things that I did not know at that moment what they really were, spirit-wise. So the cocktails were a little complex, but you could still feel like, oh, that's like a mojito, but with sake or like this or that. When I started bartending, like mixology or whatever it is, with the guys, like I kind of started at Dragonfly and then with the guys at Facto. The only place that people knew that had cocktails or a beverage program that was beyond what people kind of knew was Santa Ella. And Santa Ella was the restaurant that actually Leslie, I used to work at in La Placita. It's still very much there. Santa Ella's the last name of the chef. I mean, if you ever get to go there, you have to. It's Puerto Rican food reinterpreted in a really very nice way. But still, nobody knew what an old-fashioned was. Nobody knew what that was. And when I started working at Facto, old-fashions were something that weren't new to the cocktail world, but people in Puerto Rico loved them. They were a little sweet. They were different. You got this giant block of ice. And they were making their own ice. They were buying actually snow cone ice and cutting out like the parts. Yeah, they were literally hand cutting. Okay. That was like an hour of the shift. Whoever started the shift, that first hour, you were cutting ice. Just cutting ice for the whole night. And once the ice cubes were done, they would put them in Ziplocs in a freezer. But once the ice blocks were done, we're out of big blocks for the old fashioned. Do you want it in regular ice or whatever? Okay. Which was shitty ice from like the gas station. Like literally when I started there, it was like ice, pretty much a ice chest on top of like 2 like milk crates. Like it was guerrilla bartending. Yeah. Half of the glassware was from the guys that they brought it from their house. Like I remember having things that were in distributor in Puerto Rico, like maraschino liqueur, like chartreuse that to this day is not distributed in Puerto Rico, like hidden just in case, the Tats guy comes. Yeah. But we had it, but nobody knew what that was going to be. Because we were doing classic cocktails, so people didn't know what a last word was. We showed up all of a sudden to their table with a green cocktail and they drank it and it was fantastic. They're like, what the hell? And people were not used to getting charged $12, $15 for a cocktail, but this was so special and people felt that it was so special that people were willing to do it. Yeah. I think one of the things that started driving to get more bartenders in the Puerto Rican scene was definitely education. And the education was kind of fun because there was also a competition aspect and we're all a little, like, we love being competitive. But it was also fun getting to see like what you came up with, how did you make that? And there was a lot of exchange of how do you make that? How do I make this? I remember not even having ginger beer in the island, and that's why we learned everybody knows how to make ginger beer. Now it's readily available, but it's like a lot of like making shrubs, making all these things that was out of necessity.
Mhm.
The generation that is now doesn't have, I feel, the same needs because now everything they have, everything. They have all these cherries. They don't have to brandy them. They have syrups. They have all these modifiers that we did not have back then. We were mixing things to create kind of like that modifier. Bitters, now there's so many bitters. We never really made, well, we got to a point where we made like our Factoria blend, but it wasn't like really completely started from scratch from us. And I think having education, having the people from the distributors pay attention, that the bartenders were paying attention, started getting the distributors to bring in a lot more booze to the island. I think it is still a little bit behind, but depends also on what market. I think it's still pretty aligned with things that are going on globally, but it's not in New York, it's not London. What I am seeing is also that the newer generation they kind of don't look at the US anymore as that point of reference. They're looking now more at Mexico. They're looking more at Spain, Barcelona. Like there's going to be like right now at Barra Mexico, like a whole takeover from Puerto Rico. And that is because they're now seeing that they don't have to be looking at, and unfortunately it comes from a political colonial standpoint. They're like, we don't have to look at the US. Like there are Latino references to what we are doing. So that's very encouraging. It's very beautiful. There are more women involved, which when I started, there was very little representation. I just wish that the platforms that are in Puerto Rico were given more opportunities for women. I think there's very little still. But yeah, I think it's growing. I think people are seeing it now as a point of reference, at least for the Caribbean. And Puerto Rico Cocktail Week in November. Whoever wants to join, that's where you'll find me.
Hopefully, potentially we'll be there.
Yes.
With us.
It'll be fun.
It should be
and
fun.
Yeah.
That's exciting to see that the industry is starting to blossom up and we're seeing more of these really good women bartenders and badasses that they are come up and start doing the thing there, which is exciting. I think that's definitely something that needs to happen and is currently happening.
Yeah, I mean, right now, pretty much there's, I would say, in every kind of aspect of the business, you definitely have more than one role model. And it's funny because even when you look at history, hospitality, the first cocktail books were written by women for women about how to take care of their spouses. And even though kind of like the forward-facing person has always been a man, like women kind of have always been behind hospitality, whether it's the cooking or the inspiration behind cooking, whether it's the way that men emulated how they serviced people, has to do a lot from how they would see their mothers catering to them. You know, there's a lot of female aspects just to this business, period.
And he brought up a point about Mexico. I think Mexico's definitely had some stuff going on, right? There's a lot of eyes, especially in Mexico City.
Yeah, I mean, 30% of that list, I think it's just Mexican bars. So that's super exciting because Mexico's like a melting pot and has always been looked as a second, never first. What is it? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride?
Yes.
Oh my God. And I think the tables are shifting. I would say they have right now way more of the talent. If you look at it by the experts, quote unquote, they have more talent than I guess almost the US right now. If you look at it by a 50 best standpoint, I think there's also a lot still to discover, and not just from Mexico, if not Latin America. I think there is a lot of history, tradition. I want to say the unknown, not speakeasy, but definitely unknown places that are doing stuff that we just haven't been able to discover or haven't been in the limelight.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of underdogs in the market.
But I think also maybe locals and people don't want all of us migrating to all these places. They want to keep it the local place.
Keep it close.
Yeah, because I think I would be a little jealous too if like my regular hotspot became all of a sudden like a touristy place. Yeah, so Casa Lumbre is an incubator. So we're a little different than some other companies in the sense that we create things or spirits, but never wanting to really keep them forever. I mean, we want them to live forever, but we don't necessarily want to be owners 100% of everything we make. We want them to be able to source. So we also have funding to create new stuff. We're an incubator. We show people. And it all started with the trifecta with Danny, Moy, and Ivan Saldaña. They kind of were the people that started Casa Lumbre with the mindset of bringing the flavors of Mexico to the world. The first product they ever made was actually Milagro Tequila. It was a school project. They enjoyed it so much that then they teamed up with Ivan and created Montelobos, which was more of an author mezcal, more of a contemporary take on a traditional mezcal. From there, they moved on to Chiles to create Ancho Reyes. And then those two were acquired by Campari. But another thing that they were always passionate about, again, going back to Mexico, was Mexican ingredients. So they started exploring corn. And then that's how Abasolo and Nitza came to be. It's the first distillery dedicated to whiskey with an ancestral corn in Mexico. And then from there, now we have created a giant portfolio where we have partnerships with different bigger or other spirit suppliers, like Ojo de Tigre is now part of the Pernod Ricard portfolio. And now we've moved on to make some other things like Contraluz, which is the first mezcal cristalino. We have Las Californias, which is a dual origin gin. Noche Luna, which is a traditional sotol from Chihuahua. Alma Finca, which is our orange liqueur, sour orange coming from Yucatan. We have a vodka that's dedicated to giving back to communities called the Community Spirit. And now we've started to branch out of Mexico, creating Lost Irish. And currently, we are now also in the non-alc space with Almave, which is a blue agave spirit, very similar to the process of tequila, except we skip fermentation and concentrate more on extracting flavor of the agave. So you have something similar to agave distillate.
That one is definitely delicious. We did try it at Bartender Weekend.
Yeah? Did you try the Blanco or the Amba? I think you just had this one,
Amba,
right?
Yeah.
Well, we can try any of these. I brought some stuff so we can have a little cocktail.
So let's talk a little bit more about these non-alcoholic products, because I know that's more of the recent one. So you said it's the same process as making tequila, but we're not distilling it.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about how it came to?
So pretty much one of the first, I think, approaches, this is Ivan got approached by pretty much a famous Formula One driver, Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis is an agave fan, but obviously he drives cars. He can't really, drinking and driving don't really go together. And Ivan, for those that do not know, Agaviotico in Instagram, Ivan Saldaña is a biochemist, but he has a doctorate's degree in agaves. That is his specialty.
Okay.
I mean, he grew agaves over in England when he was studying it over there, and he's done a lot of amazing things. But Ivan was thinking, if we're gonna do something that is similar to tequila, which is particularly what Lewis loved, let's go to the root of tequila. So they went to the highlands of Jalisco. That's where they took blue agave Weber. And Ivan's worked again in many other agave distillates, not just mezcal. He's done tequila. And he decided to pretty much do all of the same processes as if you were making, like I said, a tequila. We skip fermentation. So we're not pretty much making the sugars transform into alcohol. So then we're distilling pretty much the juices and all of these, pretty much all of the juice after cooking the agave that we've extracted, and probably some of the pulp too. Mm-hmm. And then in the case of the ambar, after distilling, we put it back in that mosto to get that color, that honey color. And then for the blanco, we just take the distillate. What we are doing during the distillation process is pretty much extracting particular flavors or hydrolates, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But these hydrolates are pretty much concentrates of flavor. And we do add a little capsaicin for that mouthfeel of you're having something alcoholic. To me, it tastes more like when you're having an agave nectar. Yes, with hints of spiciness, but it to me doesn't. I mean, I don't think of tequila, I think of agave, but I know not everybody has had agave unless you've had maybe syrup. So I can see how they immediately think of maybe a reposado or something like that if you're having the ambar. But again, I just think it brings something a little different to a non-alcoholic cocktail, like that I can play with other non-alcoholic distillates to create or emulate a spirit-forward cocktail. There are now non-alcoholic bitters. So it just brings a little extra something that fresh juices and syrups just can't bring to the table.
What was the molecule you said?
It's a hydrolate. So it's pretty much when you're making kind of perfume or distillations, there are different, I don't know if I'm even saying correctly, chemical aspects that you want to separate. The hydrolytes are the water-based flavors, pretty much. And then there are oil-based, which I'm sure they're not called the same way. I am not a chemist. But if you look up that word, it's pretty much water-soluble flavors. And that's what they're pretty much trying to extract, particularly from the hundreds of chemicals that probably are in the composition of that agave juice. I know that right now we're doing very small, but I think the demand was bigger than expected. I don't have a particular number to go back to because right now we are, again, I think this project started thinking we have a sector, but I think the sector of people not drinking are bigger than expected. And then on top of it, you have the spotlight of somebody like Lewis Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So the demand has been a little bigger than what we initially thought. So we're now growing. It's still, again, very small compared to any tequila or anything, but I might have to get back to you on numbers.
And then you have a couple, what is the gin you said, single origin?
It's dual origin.
Dual origin.
So Las Californias at some point was actually part of also Mexico. And what we did was kind of take the story of this region, but we have the nativo, which is actually the herbs and pretty much all of the ingredients are native of this area of Las Californias that is north and Norte y Baja California. And then we have Cítrico, which is the story of the people that came into this terroir and brought some fruits and different other ingredients, like in this case, orange peels and the oranges. There's also figs in Las Californias Cítrico. For me, depending on my mood, Las Cali Cítrico can be like my gin and tonic poolside kind of gin. And then the nativo to me is like my dirty martini or my 50-50 martini gin. This one has like kelp and it has like hops and white sage, the nativo. So it's a lot to me more like interesting to sip neat versus the Cítrico just juices up a little tonic or anything like that.
What's the base distilled on this? These two. Is it a neutral grain?
Yes, neutral grain.
And then the Alma Finca is one of the newer ones as well. This one, I taste it.
So it's an orange liqueur, but it's made with everything from the Yucatan, again, thinking of that region. So when we think of Mexican cuisine, there is a citrus that they use that is not as available in the U.S., which is the naranja agria or the sour orange. So that spirit is made particularly from that type of orange. It is a sugarcane-based distillate where we're macerating separately various ingredients, including the peel of the oranges and the leaves. We're macerating annatto seed. We're macerating allspice. So we're macerating various ingredients for about 5 days, and then we're blending them all together. So we just wanted to bring something to the margarita, which is, I think, the number one called for cocktail in the world. And we just wanted to bring it back to Mexico. Add a little bit of a Mexican regionality to it with that sour orange, making it a little different than maybe some of the French liqueurs that are used dry ingredients and different oranges.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
It mixes really well too.
Yeah.
And then the Abasolo and the Nixta.
So Abasolo and Nixta kind of spoke a little bit of them. They're made from an ancestral corn from Mexico called cacahuacintle, and it's made in Jilotepec, which means hill of the corn. It's about an hour south of Mexico City, Jilotepec de Abasolo. Abasolo was a general that was part of that town. It's a high altitude. Pretty much our whiskey is aged 2 years outside in its bourbon barrels, but you definitely it's 100% corn. So you definitely get that corn flavor without it being overly oaky. Like it's just perfect. And then the corn has various cycles, and corn was born in Mexico. So the young corn or the sweet corn is actually what Nixta is made from the white distillate of Abasolo. And we add piloncillo to that. So just like back in the day, like we had bartender's ketchup. This is like the bartender's salsa. You can add pretty much a little bit of elote to anything, your coffee, your margarita, you name it. So yeah, those two kind of come in. They're kind of like twins, but they're definitely not twin. Like, they're not similar, but still the same.
And then, of course, Hoja de Tigre is real good.
That was my first baby when I started with Casa Lumbre. I mean, it would always be kind of, I mean, that's how I got the nickname La Tigresa. Yeah, it's pretty much a modern take on mezcal. Definitely not at all traditional. And it's a blend of two agaves from two different regions. And yeah, it's kind of like that introductory style mezcal for those that maybe may feel a little intimidated sometimes with so many labels. This one is just something a little lower on the smoke profile, but still something that you can definitely tell it's mezcal in a cocktail.
I was going to say, it's definitely designed to be like an entry tier.
Yeah.
Mezcal, for
Yeah.
sure.
It's to get more people interested pretty much in the category, and then their palates, not to diminish a California roll, but it's like a California roll. You start with, a cooked sushi, and then you move on until you end up eating sashimi.
Yeah, that's a good analogy there. Yes, for sure. Cool. And then this Cristalino. Of course, Cristalino is going to be the filtered.
Yeah, charcoal filtered
right?
after being aged a couple of months in cask. Definitely kind of for those tequila Cristalino lovers, I would say, kind of like, bringing something for the people that love that category.
It's solo too. Nice. Is it, what is the?
It's Espadín. Espadín from Oaxaca. About 7 years old, cultivated Espadín. The bottle's supposed to emulate kind of when you cook an agave. And yeah, there's some music behind that one too. We have a partnership with a Colombian artist, a reggaeton artist.
And Noche Luna is going to be a sotol.
That is right now one of my kind of darlings. Noche Luna is a distillate of sotol made in Chihuahua, made by Don Lalo Arrieta, who's been, I believe, third or fourth generation maestro viñatero. He's taught about 70% of the people that make sotol in Chihuahua, in Aldama. Ricardo Pico, or El Sotolero on Instagram, is one of the biggest, or I think one of the biggest people that knows the most about sotol. He's also part of this brand, and he's the person that actually got Don Lalo Arrieta in it. And I'm learning a lot about this category overall, but the sotol plant is fascinating. It is a plant that you can use more than one time versus the agave. And then there are 3 particular states where you can actually make sotol or be labeled as sotol, as the DO says. And it's interesting now learning because they also have an abundant varieties of sotol that can be used. So I'm still learning a lot about that and the flavors that you get. Depending on how you produce it in your style, you're going to get very different flavors. Like for Noche Luna, you get a lot of mint and chocolate in there. And also just like that desert norteño lifestyle, which is very different for me. But I feel like it's getting very trendy with people like Noche Pluma, like Peso Pluma, and some other artists that are bringing kind of like that corrido culture, kind of like, it kind of blends with Noche Luna.
Yeah. That's cool. That one's really good. We tasted it a few weeks ago when Johnny was in town, right?
Yes. Johnny is our regional brand ambassador, and yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah. Of course, not quite last, we have Community Vodka, which we talked about a little bit, and then, of course, Lost Irish Whiskey.
So Community is a vodka distilled 5 times from corn, not as deep-rooted in Mexico as some of our other brands. It's actually made here in Indiana in the U.S. But the point of it was throughout the pandemic, a lot of people needed a space or a platform where they could talk about their struggles for their community or what they stand for or non-profit endeavors. So what we wanted to create was that blank space, that blank canvas where people could really have a space to talk about those things, share what they care for. And that's pretty much what it is. We give back about 20 to 25% of our profits back to different nonprofit, and we are B Corp certified. If anybody needs some vodka to do some good out there, feel free to reach out. And then Lost Irish comes, you would think, Lost Irish, Mexican company. There are more Irish people outside of Ireland than there is in Ireland, and there is a big community in Mexico and pretty much anywhere in the world. But Lost Irish is actually a blend of the 3 different Irish styles of Irish whiskey, and it's blended in 6 casks from around the world. So it's pretty much bringing the world and Ireland kind of merged all together because, again, from that, there's a lost Irishman anywhere. It's delicious. I mean, I think everybody has had their share of Irish whiskey at some point. This is a different style than some of the other ones that you've had. And again, just a little collaboration from everywhere in the world. There's like Misunara cask, there's Colombian rum cask. There's a little bit of everywhere kind of in that bottle. So it's interesting. And again, branching out of not just Mexico. Jack is our Texas ambassador. We also have Donna out in California, and we have Tim Hurling out in New York. So that's kind of like the lost team. Yeah, get lost, stay lost.
Awesome. Well, Nino, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
For having you. Where can people find you if they have any questions?
Tigresa Tropical on Instagram. That's probably your best bet of how you can find me. But if not, you can shoot us a message here on the podcast or Patrick, and he can give you more info on how to find me. But yeah, Instagram's your best bet. Tigresa Tropical, or Tropical Tigress in Spanish. Okay. Thank you.
And today's lesson was education is key. Make sure you're learning and growing. Thank you again, Nino.
Did you know that there is a traveling bartending book? Apparently it started a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's called the Bartender's Manual.